Welcome to High Performance, the podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Alexander Phillips. Alexander, today we're going to talk about, what to do when the momentum happens and don't drop the prospecting. We see this a lot inside of businesses where people get really successful for a little bit and then it's off because they've got all of a sudden they get really busy trying to sell their existing stock and they actually stop the prospecting. You go through some waves in your business, like any business, where you get insanely busy with trying to sell the existing properties you've got, listing well ahead of the curve. What are some things that we can do to be able to deal with that momentum as it's happening and also make sure that we keep that consistency around our prospecting?
Josh, it's trying to make sure that you don't have those waves, up and down, and you've got, 5 on, and then you sell them more, then you've got nothing, which then everyone, most agents complain about. Then they get that desperation, within their mindset and how they come across a client. Then you all of a sudden in a trough for like another 3 months. So it's ensuring that when you get busy, that just comes down to how you work, your intensity on your work within the business, and I suppose that comes down to the team around you as well on what you can outsource to make sure that you're doing what you should be doing day in, day out, like your just listed calls to the street, the suburb, the just sold calls, the street to the suburb, your letterbox drops, your social media, everything like that. So there's a lot of things that people drop off, and it may need to come down if you can't afford that second or first assistant, that you're in the office an hour early, or you go in for a couple of hours on a Sunday, or you go back after your opens on a Saturday, to make sure that you find that extra bit of time to make to ensure that you're continually prospecting. But it also comes down to, I suppose, something that we're training a lot of guys on in our office at the moment is running a really good open home, because if you're really thin to the ground and you've got 5 or 6 on and you spread out and you don't have 2 at each open home, you're at one and your assistant's at another, and you're scrambling around, you're getting there on time, you're not setting it up right, and you're not talking to everyone, well, that's a lot of leakage creeping through. So that comes down to planning well in advance, making sure you got 2 at each open home, asking the right questions, doing everything that you would normally do. So I think you got to look at the structure within your business and then ensure that you're not, having anything slip through the cracks.
And so for me, I think the big thing is to realize that this is not forever. This is just for now. And that that's a great thing to be saying to yourself in the way that you go to work with people inside of your business, is that, okay, great, well, we know that we've got a lot on over the next couple of weeks. So let's make sure that we really get back to writing out our task list. Let's really grade the quality of the priorities and work out which is the work that's absolutely critically important to get done. And then let's look for efficiencies. So, can we lift up other people inside of the team now to get them to do it? And at what point now do we then go to looking at, either fitness systems or people? Getting fitter around what we actually do, making a decision to get a better system around what we actually do, or putting on the right person inside of our business to then help that scalable growth. And I think that everyone has the opportunity to take the heavier load. And what happens is a lot of people don't actually look to the people in their team to say, hey, do you reckon you could help out here? Because they actually haven't been training that technical competence around that particular skill. So I just look at it and say, okay, great. When you get busy, that's an opportunity for you to get great. And that's to get great about delegating. It's to get great about understanding why you're getting busy, and also to setting expectations really clearly, so that if there's work that was useful that you were doing before that doesn't have to be done today, then put that off and actually do the items that are really important. And I love that really business is about thinning out the number of things that you do rather than adding to it. And in thinning it out, what would happen if you could just make your open for inspections your number one lead source and you didn't have to prospect anywhere else? And that's about making sure that every single time we meet a buyer, how do we get their address details? So then we can call them when properties have actually been listed and properties have actually been sold, so we can go and do that work. I just look at it so like inside of your career, what's the scalable point when the next person comes on? And a lot of people, they get into that momentum and they didn't put the assistant on early enough. And I love this as a quote or a conversation: don't be a hire behind. So if you need to put someone in your team, invest in that early, make sure that you've got them early, teach them the systems, and actually make sure that you're getting them into a position that they can actually be really useful to you. And what's the easiest way they can be useful to you? Make sure that they're great at their callbacks. Make sure that you've got them into a situation that they know exactly how they can add value, and that everyone runs to the same system. And these systems are going to make a massive difference. And I know that with you, like the daily directions meeting that you might have at the start of every day, making sure that everyone runs a day book, these are the things that actually set you up for success. Alex, when that momentum happens, like sometimes people think that it's a peak when in fact it's actually a new plateau, because that's now where the business is going to be running forever, because they've got that level of momentum. How important is it that they do make that decision to go and put that person on inside of their business, or to get that new system in order to get that scalable growth?
If you don't put that new system in place, or that first or second assistant on, well, it's not going to be plateau. You're going to drop off again. So I suppose you've got to plan well ahead of seeing what's going to actually happen in front of you. And I think you've got to look to other people, maybe within your agency or within your business, or someone like a Josh Phegan, or you listen to these podcasts and see what the other guys have done to ensure that you're actually continually building the business. But Josh, I think you've also got to want to do it too. So some people are just happy doing their 1 or 2 deals a month, and that's fine. I totally understand that. But if you want to do 10 or 20 or 30 deals a month, which can be done, you've got to look to people. And I get people that fly up from Adelaide, Melbourne, come down from Brisbane to sit in the office with us for an hour or 2 hours to pick our brains and get stuff out of it. And I love people like that, because they're really wanting to actually be a sponge and soak up a lot of information that they can use and then benefit from. So I think you've got to obviously want to do it, and then sort of understand what it means and what that second or first assistant is to do within your business, and make sure you've got a clear path in place for that person. So you just don't throw them a desk and say, do this. Well, they don't understand why they're doing it. And that's the issue with, I think, looking at a lot of agencies. They don't probably have the right person, or they haven't trained them the right way, and they don't understand why they're there.
And so this really for me is that, like, an unsatisfied need is a motivator of behavior. So what are your unsatisfied needs? And one of my clients said to me the other day, what makes you, Alex, great at what you do, and what allows you to be the number one agent in the country again this year. And I said to them, well, look, I got to tell you that, like, I've never met a guy with more unsatisfied needs. And that's the hunger, isn't it? It's like that decision that, I want to go out there and I want to go do things, and I want to travel well, and I want to invest well, and I want to provide for my family, and I want to do those things, but I want to do it at a different level than most, because I've seen what it's like at that level. I've had the opportunity to spend time with people that are the best at what they do, and I want to be the best at what I do, because then I can scale and I can help more people. And it's never about the production of the fees. It's always about the number of people that you can actually help in making that decision to move. And I think that, like, if you can get really clear on your unsatisfied needs, that has to change the entire game for you. So momentum is something that's built day by day, but when it happens and you all of a sudden get a massive growth spurt, go with it. And I'm going to say this, like, find a way to get through that growth spurt and get that into being the new plateau, the new minimum standards inside of your business, so then you can put the right people on, you can scale, and you can actually have a much, much better business.